Sixth density. Okay, here's where we're getting closer to home turf. Intention. This is governed by the law of one. Intention is becoming the unified self. Sometimes I define that as the pure I am. It's the I am where there's no more separation between any of the layers of the character, the individual. One has become the unified self. One has gone through the lessons of fourth density of love, opening the heart, transparency, truth, faith, trusting the universe. One has stepped away from that a little bit, become detached, and realized that on one's own, one can still realize all that light. One still is the creator. And now one starts to come back into creation a little bit more in the sense of opening up back to being of service to others, but viewing that compassion with wisdom. The main learned teaching is perfecting the balance of viewing compassion with wisdom, or perfecting the balance of love and wisdom, wisdom and love. The main means are careful acts of service. So again, the main means of going from fifth into sixth density, becoming sixth density graduatable or harvestable. Careful acts of service. So notice the previous one had acts of service. From third to fourth density, it's just constant acts of service is one of the main means. Now, that doesn't fly going from fifth into sixth density. It has to be careful acts of service. Going into sixth density, things become very, very, very precise, hence the way that the law of one is worded. It's very, very precise. That's why a lot of people don't like it. They like messy love, messy spirituality, or it just seems too intellectual. But the law of one, the way that it's channeled, is far from intellectual. It's not intellectual at all. Just we don't really have the vocabulary to understand that. So, careful acts of service. Careful means and meticulous self-reflection to perfect wisdom and love. One becomes insanely meticulous about every single detail that goes on within the psyche of self. What motivates one's actions? Why am I doing what I'm doing? Why am I being of service? Is this balanced right now? Is it not balanced? It sounds intellectual, but when this has become intuitive and you've penetrated into some of those levels of light, then it's simply what you do. It's simply what happens. You can't help but be aware of every single nuance of what's happening in the room and in your own psyche. Another main tool or means is deep willingness, which is different from fourth density. Fourth density needs to step into that faith, going from third to fourth. You need to step into that faith. You need to have that willingness and that devotion to a certain extent. But both fourth and fifth density, they're still essentially selfish. They're still essentially selfish, in my opinion. Whereas sixth density, sixth density is kind of the gateway between, it's where the individuation ripens to the point where it becomes ready. It starts to ready itself for absorption in the God state. Cool. So the sixth density entity has such a deep willingness because it's gone through so much sacrifice, so much learning, so much balancing, that its willingness is unparalleled. It's similar to that of a martyr, but without the selfishness that creates martyrdom. Martyrdom is actually still selfishness, it's still a distortion. But it's similar to what we think of as someone that has so much devotion that they would die for the cause. And sixth density entity has that perfected without the need to kill themselves. There's a carefulness to it. There's a tact to it. It's not just, let me just die and be this example forever and show people what it means to love, which is very relevant as a demonstration going from third to fourth density. Hence the whole Jesus Christ example. For example, one of the expressions of our calling, of needing that example to be able to be devoted to something higher. But in sixth density, that becomes profound yet balanced selflessness. Again, it's another way of saying that, deep willingness. Profound yet balanced selflessness, surfing all as a one's self. Discipline of the personality, or direction of will, again continues from fifth density, the disciplining of the personality of the will. Okay, fifth going into sixth density, sublessons. Resolve all thoughts, feelings, emotions, and experiences as being one's I amness, which is to directly guide you into how you can actually resolve all thoughts and emotions and experiences as being inseparable from the field of I am, which is what starts to unify the self more quickly than anything else. If you want to look into existing teachings, you can look into Dzogchen, which is a form of core Buddhism. D-Z-O-G-C-H-E-N has a lot of components of this. It's a very direct sixth density teaching in many ways. Seventh even, going into seventh. Resolve all thoughts, feelings, emotions, and experiences as being one's I amness. Again, then one becomes the unified self. Every time you give up your story about an emotion and you allow it to be as it is, it gets resolved back into the self. Every time you open the heart, you allow things to be exactly as they are, recognizing their perfect nature exactly as they are. Stop coming up with your fucking stories. Stop coming up with your descriptions. Just stop as much as you can. You allow it to completely be as it is. You allow it to rest in the light of perfection in which it's already rested anyway. You're just not seeing it because you're so eager. Stop being so eager. Allow things to be as they are and just begin to directly experience them from a very deep level. And things will naturally resolve themselves back into the natural state of perfected awareness, of the unified self. Then one feels everything as one's I am over time. You can even resolve the perspective that the wall over there, or the galaxy over there, or the civilization over there, is outside of oneself. By allowing it to be completely as it is, and recognizing the underlying perfection and unity of it. So, very powerful practice. Cultivate deep willingness to be of service without abandoning wisdom. So it's not this pell-mell, again, like just splatter yourself against the wall like a tomato. It's, yes, I want to be of service, but I want to make a difference, and I want to make this life count to make a difference. It's also strategic. There's a balance there, love and wisdom. Become like or as the higher self. Higher self is a mid-sixth density phenomena. Understand one's lives and experiences from a nonlinear vantage point. See the Creator in all beings. Act towards all as oneself. Express unity to other selves. Continue to deepen willingness to embrace all as oneself. And continue to amass free will by applying the power of the will. Common challenges or attachments to transcend when letting go of fifth density vibrations. The attachment to detachment. The comfort of extreme individual freedom, which again is cool to experience individual freedom to that extent, fifth density. And sixth density almost seems like a chore to the attached fifth density entity because it's got to go interact again. It's got to go learn lessons again in interaction with others more. And so there's kind of like I'm going to be part of a governance again outside myself. I'm going to have to play by certain rules. I'm going to have to be meticulous again. So there's a little bit of that hesitation, or it can be a lot. So there's a great comfort in extreme freedom. To really demonstrate you're ready for sixth density, you need to know that you're so free that you're willing to step back into imprisonment or rules because you understand the need for that. Now, if you really know you're free, you wouldn't care. It's only if your freedom is still identified with self over here that you need to maintain that and move away from these structures or these new lessons or these social memory complexes or these acts of service or incarnating as a wanderer, which is kind of a risky thing, right? And if you're enjoying so much individual freedom, it's like a CEO of a very wealthy company giving up its company and to go work in the mud again, in a way. But if the CEO really knows that they're free and that the wealth and the abundance that they've accumulated before is actually just a reflection of what's true underneath, then there's this deep willingness to again, play in the mud, if you will, without losing that freedom, that humility, that compassion, that love, that confidence. The inactivity or unwillingness or not perceiving the need to actively be of service to others, that needs to be abandoned again, or needs to be balanced. Self-sufficiency or self-reliance needs to be let go of, in a way. Cool. The progress, this is a quote by Ra, the progress is normally from the understanding which you now seek to talking to us, third density beings, to a dimension of understanding which is governed by the laws of love and which seek the laws of light. Fourth density, after a certain point, having been established as fourth density, begins to feel the higher density sort of call, pull itself up to learn the next lessons, begin to prepare to learn the next lessons, which are the laws of light. Those who are vibrating fifth density with the law of light seek the law of one, which is sixth density. Those who vibrate with the law of one seek the law of foreverness, which is seventh density. We cannot say what is beyond this dissolution of the unified self with all that there is, for we still seek to become all that there is, and still are we Ra. Thus our paths go onward.